Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of First Canada Live. It's going to be a great show. I'm your host, Karthik, and we have a lot of fun stuff happening here on our show where we bring together the First community to talk, connect, and catch up about everything good that's out there in the First community. So before we begin, as Canadians, it is very important to recognize the land on which we are a part. As we gather for this meeting, physically dispersed and virtually constructed, let us take a moment to reflect upon the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we celebrate today. We acknowledge the elders and youth, past, present, and emerging of all land on which we work and live. We honor the ancestral spirits with gratitude and respect. We acknowledge this land out of respect for the Indigenous nations who have cared for Turtle Island, also called North America. The Indigenous people have been gifted the role of caretakers of this land from before the arrival of settler peoples until today. Most importantly, we remember the history of these lands and people that have been tainted by poor treatment and a lack of friendship with the First Nations who called it home before it was given this name. This history is something that everyone is affected by. We are all treaty people in Canada. We all have a shared history to reflect upon, and each of us is affected by this history in different ways. Our past defines our present, but if we move forward as friends and allies, it does not define our future. Now, I'd like to welcome our co-host for today's show. She's been here before many times. She's a student on First Team 1305 Ice Cube from North Bay, Ontario, and a member of the First Canada Youth Council. Say hello to Michelle.
Hello, how are you?
Michelle, I'm doing great. Welcome back to the show. It's been a while. Glad to have you. Glad to see your friend, Mr. Handsome, is back in the background there. Hey, Mr. Handsome, how are you doing? Good. Yeah, that's good. And we got your new microphone, which is super fancy. I know I've seen it before, right? I think it's the first time it's been on the show, so it's looking really good. How has your fall been?
It's been good, I had a fun Halloween at home, and yeah, now the pretty colors have kind of gone away where I'm at, but getting ready for the beautiful snow as well. We're kind of in that in-between period where it just kind of the snow comes and then melts and
Right,
comes and
right.
melts.
Yeah, it melts and then it
Yeah.
just comes and it stays and it stays. Hey, what did you dress up for Halloween? What was your costume?
I was a part of a Ghostbusters costume, and I was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Oh, I love the Stay
Yeah,
Puft
and
Marshmallow.
we actually
So
won the group costume at my school, so it must have been
that
pretty good.
that is pretty fabulous. I'm a big Ghostbusters fan. Have you seen the new movie yet? Because I haven't, so no spoilers if you have.
No, I haven't seen it either.
But I really want to because it's like it combines like two of my favorite things, like the Ghostbusters and Paul Rudd. So I am like ready for it. But speaking of ready, I am ready for a great show tonight, Michelle. We got a lot of good stuff coming up. We have some of your fellow youth council members going to be having a panel discussion on the important topic of inclusivity. I think all of us at some point in our lives have not felt included, and we know how it's just lack of a better word, it's not fun. It hurts and it can really be damaging. So I think the council is going to talk to us about strategies for inclusion and all the good things that we can do. So that'll be really good. Also, we have a story time with one of our favorite first alums, Rebecca Rayner. She's been all over the world with her various journeys, and she is in Canada right now, and she's going to be telling us about her story. So that's going to be really good. For everyone who's watching, if you've got any questions for us, I know right now there's a lot of people saying, give us Ethan. Ethan will be here in a second. We drop them into the Twitch chat. We will answer. We will respond. We'll do everything we can. But also remember, just when you're interacting in the chat, we're here to celebrate all that's good in the community. So let's keep the positivity up and let's bring the energy and bring our gracious professionalism. So it is going to be a great show. And to start us off, Michelle, we have the Youth Council Wellness Moment, and you got something super special for us, right?
Yes. So, I know I've said a little bit of times I've talked about my, crocheting, origami. I really do like doing crafts to, recenter yourself, get some time to think, kind of in this busy world where, you got to check your emails, you got to do this, got to do that. But, sometimes just for you and just, crafting, doing something with your hands, doing something a little bit creative. So recently I got like this kit to build a little greenhouse. So I've started working on it, and it's much more involved than I thought it was going to be. Like I have to cut the little wooden pieces.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share a little bit. Here's my little
Oh,
shelving unit that it's going to be plants are going to be on here. Look at this fun little door. Wow. And little birdhouse. I had to, glue it all together, put it all together. Now this is the pièce de résistance, as they say, a little drawer, but it doesn't end there. Watch this.
Functional.
You can open it. Whoa. So, I really was like enjoyed myself just kind of, taking a break from everything and getting to just put it together. It really, helped me a little bit. But then I also had a psychology test the next day. So I was listening to the psychology book read out while doing this. So it kind of helped me like relax and take in the psychology at the same time as well. So
That's
overall, I
fabulous.
think,
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
yeah, so overall, just again, I'm just a big crafty person. So if you can find any crafts, and if you need an idea for a craft where you're like, oh, I'm not creative enough, I can't think of anything, well, to get you started, I'm sure everyone's very creative in their own way, but you can just follow the instructions and put it together, and it's just fun. It's like building Lego. It's fun to follow the
Yeah.
instructions. So.
And Michelle, I think you really touched on a really important point there, because sometimes, it's easy to get into the trap of, oh, I'm too busy to do anything else right now. I have to do work or study or homework or whatever. But sometimes taking a break to work on a craft or a hobby or whatever it might be actually allows you to be more productive on your homework and your studying and everything. Because if you just go like nonstop and if your brain does the same thing over and over again, it gets out of like, it's like you need to like try something different and then come back. It's like exercising different muscles and the such. So I find, I know when I was in school, like sometimes it was just good to, okay, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to do something else, and so I'm glad that you have that, and thank you so much for sharing this wellness moment. It's going to be really good, so it's exciting. All right, Michelle, I think it's now time for our news updates. And to start off our news updates, we have FRC Team 865 Warp 7 here to highlight their upcoming conferences. They've been running them this fall. They have another one tomorrow. That's November 24th, and they have 2 more in December. So to join us here today, we have Mahir, Ella, and Ethan.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Mahir, welcome back to the show. You were on last year, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was here last year to promote the last year seminar series.
Exactly. That's right. And Ethan and Ella, welcome. I hear you're in grade 9. So welcome to the First Community and welcome to First Canada Live.
We are in grade 9. Hello, it's good to be here.
Yeah, it's glad to have you. So why don't you tell us exactly what 865 is up to right now?
Well, my cat is making a mess under my desk right now, but
that's fair.
The
cat wants to be on First Canada Live too, I'm guessing.
She does. Let me get her.
What's her name?
Her name is Nikita.
Hello, Nikita. Welcome to First Canada Live.
Yes, she's welcome here.
Awesome.
Well, right, the seminars. So over the past few months, we have been introduced by one of our sponsors, Well Simple, and they have offered to provide to our students seminars for like our business and operations like sub-team. So these, okay, that's cool.
Oh, did Nikita do that?
Yep, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That happens. It happens. There's 3 of you, so one of the others.
Right, I'm just going to turn off my camera.
Okay. Maybe Mahir or Ethan, you want to jump in?
Sure. Ethan, you want to go? Oh, I guess. Oh.
Ethan, it looks like you got a little issue with your audio right now. We can't hear you. There you go.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Well, I'm in design, and what we've been doing is just trying to rebuild the robots in the computer, which is harder than it seems, because most of the kids in there have already given up. But it's been going good so far.
That's fabulous. And Mahir, what else can you tell us about these seminars?
Well, our seminar series, it's like a 5-part seminar series. We are working with Well Simple Foundation on we have people from our team as well as speakers from the community talk about different topics on financial literacy. So the first 2 seminars were one on grant writing, and then the second one we had Artie and Joanna from First Canada to join us and talk about scholarships and first scholarships that people can apply to. And then tomorrow I'm hosting the seminar with someone from Well Simple on sponsorship acquisition, and they're in a sponsor's perspective on receiving application for like a sponsorship or partnership.
That's really neat. This is just such useful stuff for teams because, I think a lot of the time it's easy to overlook this aspect of teams, but also I think with with the pandemic and teams taking a little bit of a gap year or whatever, this is just really good to get everyone up and rolling. What do you think, Michelle?
No, I think this sounds really great. Like you said, sometimes it can be looked over a bit, and financial literacy is, really, really important. So this sounds like really interesting and really great seminars. Wow.
Yeah. And so, Mahir, how do people join in if they want to sign up for this?
Well, you can sign up on our website at warp7.ca/seminar series. And we also post our links on our social media at FRC865. There you can join the meeting, which usually happens 3:30 to 4 Eastern Standard Time.
So that's fabulous. We're going to drop that link in chat in just a second so you can get at it, warp7.ca/seminar-series, and follow them at FRC865. Mahir, anything else you'd like to plug before we go?
I'd like to thank you guys for having us on the show today.
Oh, of course. We really love when our community gets involved with these sorts of things to do outreach and just to show off their knowledge. I know Michelle's team, you had a seminar day a couple of weeks ago, right? The Gateway Conference?
Yep. And it was good. So yeah, great to hear about all these other great things that other first teams are doing. Yeah,
we got a lot going on. 865's got their conferences. I think SWATposium's coming up. 1241's Girls in STEM Olympics. Lots of great stuff from our community. So thank you, Mahir, Ethan, Ella, and thank you, Nikita the cat. Sorry, we could only have you on air for just a little bit there, Nikita, but it's been good. And 865, I can't wait to see you at an event, right?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, for sure.
Yep. It's going to be great. All right, folks. Thank you, 865. And now we'll continue on with our news updates where coming up, Michelle, did you know that there's going to be an FRC Town Hall discussion with none other than Mr. John Hobbins coming up?
Oh my goodness. Wow. No,
And
I didn't know.
And you know when that is?
When is it?
It's going to be happening next Tuesday, November 30th at 7 p.m. So some of you may have gotten an email saying that it was happening this Thursday, November 25th, but it's going to be happening on Tuesday, November 30th at 7 p.m. And that just gives John more time to work because he's doing all sorts of research right now to get answers for teams about lots of things about the FRC season in general, but specifically about the Houston Championship, which the Ontario teams will be attending. So if you have questions about logistics, how will I get my robot to Houston? Will we have enough time? What will happen with hotels? Come onto the town hall. Let your concerns be known, let your questions be asked, and John will do a great job answering all the questions. And if he can't get an answer right away, he will work because it's John Hobbins. He will find answers for you. And it'll be a good chance also for the community to connect with each other. So you can, hear what other teams are thinking about the season and chat with each other. So that'll be really, really good. Town hall discussion and a link to the Zoom call that the town hall discussion will be taking place will be dropped into chat in just a second. So make sure you take a look at that. And if you missed that, check the FRC program updates where you can always find the Zoom links on any of these mentor meetings, town halls, and all the good stuff that's going on. Also, just a reminder, you know what else is happening on November 30th, Michelle?
What is happening on November 30th?
Well, that is the deadline for all teams to pay their registration fee for this year. So teams have already received invoices and you've probably gotten a bunch of notifications, but this is just another friendly reminder. Hey, make sure you get paid up. So that way you can ensure you get your kit of parts on time, which is really important because the kit of parts, Michelle, you worked on this great rookie support document. And one of the things it talked about was what is the kit of parts? So, and the kit of parts is gives you the bare bones to put together your robot. And if you're a rookie team, it has your control system in there. And for veteran teams, it could have the kit drive base in there, or maybe you opted out for a credit with Andy Mark. So there's all sorts of good stuff. Do you have a favorite part of the kit of parts, Michelle?
Oh, I really liked, just in my mind, the FTC kit of parts is kind of more recent in my mind. I really liked that it came with 2 Android phones we had 2 kit of parts. It came with an Android phone to control it.
Oh, your robot, that's right.
This is nice.
Yeah, FTC, lots of teams use those Android phones. And now some teams, they have something new called the Control Hub, which is it's all of it digested into one little hub right there as a box, and it controls your robot. So there's lots of options. FTC is good stuff. And I'm sure, we have one of the FTC gurus in Ontario coming on the show later on today, Armand from the Youth Council. He knows everything about FTC. So I'm looking forward to that. But Michelle, I think that's all the news for right now. So we will be back in just a moment after a word from one of our great sponsors, Magna. Right, we're back. Hey, Twitch chat's getting a little bit little bit rowdy, folks. Just chill right there. Why the bald guy? Because the bald guy's here. He's right here. Enjoy the show. Michelle, are you ready for our next segment? It's story time is back.
Wow, I'm excited. I love story.
I love stories. I love story time, and this guest is fabulous. She is a First Canada alum of Team 1334, the Red Devils. She's also been an FRC mentor for Team 1360 and 2994. That's Orbit Robotics and Aztecs. She has a bachelor's and master's of management engineering from the University of Waterloo. And she's had various volunteer roles, including having been a part of the Waterloo First Planning Committee. So please welcome Rebecca Rayner.
Hi.
Hello, Rebecca. How are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. How about you?
I am fabulous. I'm excited to have you on the show. Rebecca, when was the last time you were at a first event? Because it's been a long time for everyone, I think.
It probably would have been the last time Waterloo had an event.
So 2019, I think. Yeah, that sounds about right. And Rebecca, when was the first time you went to a first event?
The first FRC event I would have been to would have been in 2012.
Ooh-wee.
And I think Waterloo's before GTR West, right?
Yeah, it was.
All right, so Waterloo.
Waterloo. Yeah, the bridges that year. Yeah, that was a hilarious Waterloo event because we had so few teams. We had to have like breaks in the schedule. Like we played games in between. I remember there was bridge balancing contests with like the MCs and like random people from the stands. It was a great time. I miss Waterloo, the event. I guess the school too.
Me too.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess Michelle, not Michelle. Michelle's my co-host. She's on that side. Rebecca's on this side. Or maybe I'm pointing in the wrong direction. Who knows where everything is with Zoom? First question is, and we kind of touched on it about your first event, but what's your first journey? Where did it begin? Where are you now? And what happened in between?
Yeah, so I started off with first in grade 10. At the time, I actually had no interest in science and technology, but I had friends on the team, and one of my friends literally just dragged me to a meeting and said, you should join. So I did, and I started off working on business and media, but I quickly just sort of got involved in team operations and became captain in my second year. That was all with 1334. So that was my experience as a student was with 1334, and then I moved on and started mentoring 1360, and when I was on co-op in Ottawa with 2994. And there hasn't been as much going on for me the last few years with First, but I'm excited because I'm going to my first FTC event on Saturday.
Wow, because you're in British Columbia right now. They got events going on.
Yeah, yes, I'm going to be volunteering at the Kitimat event.
That's nice. What's your volunteer role at that event?
I'll be the head ref.
There you go.
And I've never refed before, so that'll be fun.
Well, Rebecca, that kind of fits because you don't do anything small. It's just like, yeah, let's go right away, head ref. But you have so much first experience that I'm sure you're going to be fabulous at that. So like digesting a game and being a head ref also requires like not everyone's like, oh, you have to know the rules so well, but you also have to be able to like work with people and be able to like just have that calm, chill sort of thing and explain things to teams. I think you'll be great at that. So that's going to be exciting. Michelle, do you got a question for Rebecca?
Sure, I do. So, just hearing about that you joined first in grade 10 and all of that. I also joined first in grade 10. I was a little, spooked because I thought, oh, I missed all of this stuff. So I just wanted to say, and to anyone out here watching, it's never too late to start or get your friends to start, even if you think it's just it's your last year, it's your second last year, anything. So, it's a little inspiring. But, if you could think about all your time in First, what would your proudest moment in First be?
Yeah, it's hard to pick because there's so many. But I guess one of my favorite moments, and it's also a proud moment, was in 2013, 1334 went to the first event held in Calgary, the Western Canadian Regional at the time. And we were one of a few experienced teams that were at that event. And it was our third event that year. So that was just an amazing event to be at. But one of the things that I was so proud of is if you looked around the event, you didn't see any members of 1334 in our own pit. We were all in different pits, and we were working on a bumper station to make sure that all the teams had legal bumpers and could compete. And you just saw us everywhere but in our own pits. And that was just a really proud moment for our team.
That was, that's kind of the beauty of First, right? Like there's there's lots of things about First that's unique. But I think one of the things that just sets it apart is just there's this camaraderie where you go to an event and like you're there to compete and compete like crazy, but you're also there to support everyone else and whoever may be in need. And it's just this cool way it comes together. And when you see it, it's just like, whoa, this is really nice, you know? And then it's really nice when you see that other people, like the younger team members, get it as well. And like that culture just kind of pervades. And I'm sure you kind of had that feeling in that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we went back in 2014 as well, and very similar. Like it was very cool to almost in some ways be a volunteer at an event.
Yep.
While still competing at it. Yeah, it was very cool.
You know, and that Calgary event comes up a lot on this show because lots of people have their favorite stories from that event. And that event is the one, anyone who watches the show regularly has heard the Herman story about 3 or 4 times. This student, Michelle, have you heard the Herman story? Because otherwise I'm going to tell it again. Okay, we're doing it again. We're doing it again.
If you don't know, then you don't know.
It was he was on his own. It was a 1-person team, and he was just working tirelessly on his robot. And so many teams were helping him get a robot together. And then his robot competed well. Like other teams volunteered to be on his drive team, and people were rotating in, and all this good stuff. But at the end of qualification rounds, Herman just kind of assumed, "Oh, I'm not going to get picked," and he had to get a flight to go all the way back to Fort Mac and then further on. So he's like, "Oh, I'm just going to leave." And then we're doing alliance selection, and someone picks Herman's team, and I'm getting ready to announce, "Oh, well, they're not going to be able to." And then Herman was just leaving the building, and he heard his team number get called, and he ran out onto the field, and the crowd exploded. It was kind of amazing. And then Rebecca, like you're so modest. I think it's so cool because that was one of your favorite moments, but your team also won that event.
Yeah, that was our first blue banner. So that was a big deal for us as well. That was very exciting. And
the team who you won that event with, their lead student is now like all over the news right now because that was Alex Rodriguez.
Absolutely.
Who is the founder of Embark Technologies, who was listed on the NASDAQ recently at $5.2 billion. A first alum, just, of the same age group or whatever, and is now like just this huge like entrepreneur. And it's just so cool. There's so many stories about that event that everything ties together, but like all the cool things that happen, like one of your favorite moments is still the gracious professionalism, teams helping each other. So it's really, really cool. So I know you said that was kind of like your favorite. Do you have like another FRC story, another one, like, or maybe just like a more fun one or something else where that's kind of stuck with you over the years?
I mean, again, there's so many stories,
right?
But I think some of the ones that really stuck out were from connections we made in our community. So the opportunities that gave. So after the 2013 season, we competed in a competition called Innovation Nation, where we were like showing a real world application of a robot. So we were taking our 2013 robot and showing how it could be used to help firefighters. So we were showing how it could theoretically climb a ladder so to go up buildings, and also like shoot foam discs that help suppress fire. So we actually partnered up with the Oakville like fire training facility, and we got to go there and like film some footage of a burning building and how our robot could help that. But as part of that, I got to dress up as a firefighter and be in a building and reach over fire into our robot to grab a disc.
Like actual fire? Like
actual
not
fire.
Like a prop? Wow. I did not know that. That is fantabulous. Oh.
Yeah. So every time we have a video, every time I see it, I get really excited. Oh, that's me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like back when I was in high school, I was also like a robot firefighter, just like just on the side there. That's fantastic. What do you think of all this, Michelle?
Wow. That sounds really cool, getting to do something like that. And it's great to see all the applications in the real world. Sometimes I tell my friends about it and they're like, "Do the robots just drive around?" I'm like, "No, it's more than that. They're not just driving around and shooting hoops." Like that's what my sister always says. But I did hear earlier that you went to Waterloo, and I'm just starting my application process, and I just got my Waterloo login today. So what did you study there, and why did you choose the program and the school?
Okay, yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations. That's an exciting time to be in. So I studied management engineering, and a lot of people don't really know what that is. I often say that it's similar to industrial engineering, but that's because of the way that I've taken it. But it sort of covers a lot of different fields, and the three main pillars that they call in management engineering are sort of people and organizations, math, optimizations, operations research, and computer science, data management, technology. So sort of any sort of combination of those things is what you can do with management engineering. So I actually originally had no intention in going into engineering. I had no idea what I was going to do, but then with 1334, I ended up doing a lot of project management, and I enjoyed doing project management on engineering projects, but found that I needed more of a technical background to understand problems more and how to effectively manage them. So I scoured through my blueprint, searched all the engineering programs that there were, and found two that I was interested in: industrial engineering and management engineering, which at the time I did not realize were, at least for me, very similar. So I decided to go into management engineering at Waterloo. I really enjoyed it. I had 6 co-ops in sort of 3 different fields. So I did 2 co-ops in project management, 2 co-ops in more traditional industrial engineering, and then 2 co-ops more on the data and coding side of things. And I ended up really liking the technical components of the program. So I don't want to pursue project management right away, but that's what led me down this path. And I really enjoyed my undergrad experience. So I decided I would stick around for 2 more years and study at the master's level. It's called Management Sciences, but it's in the same department at Waterloo.
Yeah. That is super cool, Rebecca. You mentioned operations research, and I don't think that a lot of our audience will be familiar with that term, because I know when I started at Waterloo, I wasn't, but then I became fascinated with the field. Do you want to give people like the high level overview of what that is?
Yeah, okay. So I would say that operations research is the math that goes into operations in a lot of ways. So if you think of, like, I did projects with warehousing and determining what the proper elevations should be for warehousing to fit in all the material. My thesis was on trying to balance workload amongst a set of workers. So it's like all those things that you might not think about in operations and how you can use math to solve those problems.
It's really cool. And I think a lot of times people are just like, oh, like math, like, yeah, sure, you do math because like differential equations, or it's like part of like statics and all those traditional fields of engineering, but there's just this whole other side to it. I think operations research is something that could be really fascinating for a lot of first students who have that background, but like solving problems. I know one of the assignments we had was like, okay, how can you most efficiently set up cashiers in a grocery store to get the proper throughput? And then you write code to do a discrete event simulation to see like if you like add a cashier here or remove something here, how that affects your simulation, or like divert lines and stuff. And like that's an actual field of engineering that people don't really think of. So it's neat. So, Michelle asked a good question of what you did in school and all that sort of stuff. But now, like, you have a piece of advice to give to first students as they're beginning their journey, or maybe, anything to do with high school, maybe university selection or anything in between?
Yeah, so I actually didn't end up I was super involved in extracurriculars in high school, but I didn't end up doing that many in university, which was fine, like it worked out. But something that ended up working out super well for me was interacting with my professors outside of the classroom. So I had opportunities to do research projects, either like as an addition to a course or like outside of my coursework. I had opportunities to work doing like recruitment for my program and working with profs that way. I also played on a soccer team with one of my professors and people from my department. And it was a great way to meet people in my department, learn about the work that they were doing. It absolutely helped me both in determining if I wanted to do a master's and deciding what I wanted to do with that. But then also having that network once I was in my master's, like that was super helpful. But also even throughout undergrad, they looked out for opportunities for me. They always like let me know when there were competitions that might be good for me. They were like obviously good references. So if you have the opportunity to work with your professors outside of the classroom, I would absolutely recommend doing that.
That's really good advice, because I think a lot of times people, they get to university and like, high school, it seems like things are closer knit and it's easier to have access. And it's like, oh, a professor is like so far off and they're probably so busy or whatever. But lots of the professors are there because they like students. They're just like the mentors in this program and they want to help you out. So that's really cool advice. You mentioned you had 6 co-op terms there. You did 2 in each field. What is the coolest thing you did on your co-op terms? Coolest job?
Okay, so there was one term that I was working in manufacturing for a relatively small company, and at the time they were adding a new facility, and I got to propose the machines and the layout for that entire new facility. That was a really cool.
That is a lot for
really
a co-op.
cool experience. Yeah.
I was not expecting that. That is. Well, first of all, you must have done something right to earn their trust to let you make multi-million-dollar decisions like that. That is fabulous.
Yeah, and I also got to go on a road trip to go like see the potential machines that we were buying. So that was a fun thing to do. But yeah, very cool. And then I wasn't there when they actually had the new facility or that implementation, but I did go back later and see the implementation of that,
and
which was very
did the implementation match your recommendations and what you imagined it would look like?
Yeah, I think it was very similar.
That is such a cool feeling.
I remember them saying like, oh, there was this mistake here, but I know that it wasn't from you.
Oh, that's good to know. That's good to hear.
Yeah, so I think they were happy with it.
Michelle, you have another question for Rebecca?
Sure. So I did hear you talk a little bit, about your professors, and we did mention, mentors a little bit, but did you have somebody that, really inspired you, or, who inspired you the most?
I don't really think it's people in particular that have inspired me, but it's being at events, seeing what teams are doing, like that energy, that just gives me a lot of motivation to, I don't know, if like work on a new program, or I don't know, I just get energized by being at competitions and seeing what teams are doing. And I think that's where inspiration comes from.
There is a special feeling at events. I find it especially right after alliance selection, right before the elimination rounds, as things are getting ready, where like you can just kind of feel the tension in the building and like everyone's anticipation and excitement. And it's just like, wow, this is happening. This is going down right now. And just that building where like there's a little bit of a buzz, people are moving a little bit faster in the pits, people in the stands, that nervous energy. I don't know. It just even just thinking about it, like I get kind of like goosebumps right now. It's just like, oh yeah, this is a thing. This is sweet.
There have been times where I've gone, I don't know, a year or 2 years without going to an event.
Yeah.
And when I go back, it's like I can't believe why I haven't been there, like why I've had this gap, because immediately it just feels so good to be there.
Doesn't it also feel like comfortable, like it's familiar? It's like, oh yeah, this is where I belong. I like this feeling. And like, yeah, this just fits, because you know what's happened. The faces might be different. And like, especially as you get older, it's like, oh, it's like, I remember this. It's just everyone's a lot younger now, kind of deal. And you see it all buzzing and everything. Like one of like the little ongoing jokes that I had with Michelle is that she's been a part of First for so long, but Michelle, you still have not been to a first event, right? An FRC event.
Still waiting, hopefully.
Still waiting. So like you're gonna, but this is all the good stuff. I hope it's like we haven't hyped it up so much for you, Michelle, that it's gonna underwhelm and everything. But I think it'll be good. So Rebecca, you obviously have done a lot in First and a lot with management engineering and education like that, but you've also done a lot of other cool stuff. So we ask all our guests this: what's something else that you're passionate about, or something awesome that you've done or you do that's not related to First at all?
Yeah, so I'm really into sports, but especially softball and baseball. So baseball as a fan, softball as a player and a coach.
And so where is your softball journey taking you?
So I actually had the opportunity a few years ago to play for Team Canada in what's called the Maccabi Games, which is held every 4 years in Israel. It was, at the time at least, the third largest sporting event in the world, with over 80 countries competing. So that was a really cool opportunity, like both to travel and to get to play softball and represent your country is something really special.
That is absolutely wild that you've been able to do that. And like, what was that feeling like, like walking out there, like representing Canada on the world stage?
Yeah, I don't know. Getting my uniform, that was
Right.
super exciting. Like having my name, I had never had my name on a uniform either. So having my name on a Canada jersey was
Yeah.
very special. Yeah, and we had, I think, a few hundred athletes walking in the opening ceremonies. A very cool, surreal thing to be part of.
And at the games, did you get to interact with the athletes from the other countries, not just in softball, but in the other sports? Is there
A little bit. So the
Yeah.
way that it works is that there's sort of hubs.
Okay.
Like they're spread out around the country. And I was actually very lucky to be in Tel Aviv. And so there were a lot of other sporting events going on in Tel Aviv. I didn't get to go to any, but I did get to interact with some of the other players, like whether at our hotel or on buses going to opening and closing ceremonies, things like that. Yeah, it was very cool, and like from all over the world.
That's super, super neat. I don't know, Michelle, you got any other questions for Rebecca?
Sure. So how did you get invited to that? Like what led, like were you already on the softball team, or like
So I knew that it existed. And I had actually tried out for the team 4 years before, but it just didn't seem like the right time for me to go. I would have been under 18, and just like, it would have been a more challenging trip to do. So when the opportunity came again, actually what happened was I found out and was in the co-op process. I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? I've already gone through this and I can't contact employers. So the day I got a job, I said, can I call you? And told them, so my availability has changed. I'm not available for these 3 weeks. Is it okay if I still have the job? And that worked out.
Well, I think like a lot of employers, especially when you're hiring a co-op, you want like a dynamic candidate. So if a candidate's saying, yeah, I need 3 weeks because I'm competing representing Canada, I think, it's like, yeah, I want this person who's so awesome and excellent, and so if they're awesome and excellent in that way, I bet you're going to be awesome and excellent in this way. So, and also it goes back to that, like the old piece of advice, you can't get what you don't ask for,
Mm-hmm.
So that's super exciting.
I mean, I was prepared for whatever, like I was going on this trip.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing was stopping me.
That is 80 countries and just representing like that. That's a neat experience of a lifetime. And so in the pre-show, you mentioned that the next McCovey games are this year, but you're like, you don't know if you can because you're, again, figuring out what's happening in life and job-wise and everything like that. And so you're out in BC right now. How's that?
Yeah, it's, mostly great. Obviously there's been flooding recently, so that has been a little bit of a downer, but right now I'm outside of that area, so I'm not affected at this point. But yeah, I've gone all around, sort of actually all across Canada from Ontario. I haven't gone east, but started in Winnipeg and have made my way out here.
Wow. What's your favorite thing you've seen so far?
That's so hard.
I know. Okay, like one of your favorites. Doesn't have to be like the number one.
Banff was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we went sort of just after the season closed.
Okay.
So it was not busy at all.
Oh wow! Because everything I hear from friends who've been to Banff, they're like, when you see like those photos everyone has on the lake, like understand that there's like a million people on the other side of that photo. It's not like I'm like, oh okay, but yeah. So it was like a little bit of a down season right there.
Yeah.
Michelle, what's the coolest place you've been in Canada?
I like Algonquin, the camping at Algonquin, but I also like going to Stratford and seeing the plays in Stratford.
Stratford Festival is a good time. What's the best play you've seen? Or most recent one? Asking people what the best and what the favorite is. It's like I hate it when people do that to me because it's like I can't choose. So like it's more like what's a play that you've seen at Stratford that you enjoyed?
I liked the Guys and Dolls play.
Nice. I'm a big fan of musical theater. So
yeah, me too.
Rebecca, you said you're a big baseball fan. I know that.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Jays these days?
I feel good. I mean, we'll see what happens in the coming weeks, but the Brios deal seemed great.
Yes, that's a great
And-
extension, locking him up.
I mean, everybody that we're retaining is getting into a better age bracket pretty much.
Right. If you think about it, like, Bichette and Guerrero and Teo and Gurriel are all going to be like 1 year closer to their primes.
Yeah, I
Teo
don't want
might
to
be just
say that
entering it.
Vlad's going to be better because that's so hard, but
Yeah,
absolutely could be.
he had literally one of the best seasons ever by a first baseman. And only reason didn't win an MVP is because Shohei pitches on the side.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, literally the only player you can compare him to is Babe Ruth,
Right.
which is
But-
insane.
Right. But I do think with Vlad, even if he steps back a little, I'm not saying it's going to, there's a lot of room. He was like the best by far or whatever. Like we saw that in baseball a couple of years ago when Bryce Harper had that great age 22 season. And then everyone, like the next year he stepped back a little bit. Everyone's like, oh, Bryce is just like, no, it's just when you set the bar so high, there's a little bit coming down. I'm just really excited to see if they can re-sign Simeon and Ray. I really, really hope they do. As like this team was on the cusp last year. And if it wasn't for like the fact that they had to play their home games in 2 other cities other than Toronto, I'm pretty sure that was a playoff team right there. And
Absolutely. And if they had made it, that would have been one of the most exciting teams to watch throughout the playoffs.
Yeah. And like the way they were playing in September and the way the starting rotate, like Ryu was our number 1 starter coming into the season, but like literally going into the playoffs could have been like the number 4 or number 5 at that point because there was so much depth in the starting.
Right, which means
pitching.
he wouldn't have even been pitching.
Maybe it's like I don't know what they would have done there because like obviously Ray starts game 1 and Barrios game 2, Manoa game 3, and then it's like where do you go? Do you go Mats? Do you go Ryu? I think you go Ryu just because history and veteran presence or
but
whatever.
short leash.
Yeah, absolute short leash. But then your short leash is like, okay, we bring in Mats as the long person, or like what could have been.
Yeah,
what could have been.
I'm really hoping that next year I can start doing my Jays road trips again because
I didn't go to a game this year. I didn't feel
me neither.
comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable yet. I just thought it's I'm gonna. Right. I love anyone who watches these shows knows there's nothing I love more than the Jays. And I, used to go to like 20, 30 games a year, but just, I thought, other people felt comfortable and more power to them. I just wasn't there yet. So I chilled out, but I can't wait hopefully soon to go back. Cause there's nothing, we talked about the feeling at a first event, just that excitement, that energy. And there's something like that too. Hey, Rebecca, before we go, do you have any questions for myself or for Michelle? I like to switch it up sometimes,
What do you think I should expect at this upcoming FTC event?
Michelle, do you want to go? Because you're on an FTC team right now.
Yes.
Right?
So I think you're going to be quite impressed if you ever get to see the 2 First Team 1305 FTC teams. I think you'll be quite impressed with the theming, the logos. I think I'm really proud of how far the 2 teams have come so far. So if you're what to expect, some awesome FTC teams really, and it's gonna be pretty great. And I love the theming with the Ducks. So expect some funny business.
Rebecca, what I would say is that because you're like you're FRC junkie, like hardcore and everything like that. I think you're going to really appreciate the difficulty of FTC because a lot of people think, oh, smaller robots, it's easier, but you have to jam all that functionality into a smaller package. Mm-hmm. And there's like a real challenge associated with that. And like you can't just like throw an extra motor on things. That's just not an option in FTC. You have to work really within the constraints that are there. And so it's really cool to see the ingenuity that goes into it and what teams can do where you're limited. You don't necessarily not working in a machine shop or something like that. So I think you'll appreciate that. And I think you'll also, especially being a head ref, because I take it it's your event you're going to is an in-person event, I take it?
Yes.
Okay, so like it's so cool at FTC in-person events with the 12 by 12 field because like the drivers for the 2 teams are like basically beside each other and they can hear each other talking and that sort of interaction. Like in FRC, you're so used to like you're across the field, across the glass, you have no idea what they're doing over there. But that close quarters, where like a referee kind of stands in between the 2 teams and like you're like in the middle of it. So it's really cool. I've been learning more and more about FTC as of late, and I'm really fascinated by the challenges and everything the teams go through. So it's going to be a good season coming up, and thank you for volunteering, supporting First across the country. And thank you, Rebecca, for coming on the show. It was really good to see you. Always good to see an old timer out here and a fellow Waterloo peep. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It was great catching up.
For sure. And we are going to be back with the Youth Council talking about inclusivity just in a couple moments after word from one of our sponsors, Boeing.
All second stage tanks now pressurized. 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, we're back. Hey, Michelle, have you ever seen the movie Top Gun?
No, I have not.
Okay, that commercial from Boeing, great sponsor. They do so much for First. Really got me excited because it reminded me of Top Gun, which is I really like fast planes. So just cool to see. I was like, oh yeah, I'm ready to enter the danger zone. So Michelle, at the top, we talked a little bit about the importance of inclusivity, and we're going to have a deeper dive with the Youth Council here coming on. So let's introduce our Youth Council panelists. Starting with from team FRC team 2056, we got Vanshika. We have from FTC team 16397 and FRC team 3560. So relatively quantum and Chinkuzi. We got Armand. Armand, I've been hyping you up already on the show, so it's good. And then from FRC team 7558 Alt F4, Samantha is here. And from FRC team 4069 Low L Robotics and also mentoring all 4 Low L and Robotics FTC teams, it's Tyler. Hello, Youth Council people. How are you doing?
Hey, Karthik.
Hello.
Hi, Karthik.
So I am excited to have you all on because Samantha, this is your first time ever on the show, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think Vanshika, Armand, and Tyler have been on in other capacities, either as chairman's presenters or Dean's List nominees in the past, or Dean's List winners and the such. So welcome to the show. And I think you're all going to start. You have a little presentation to give us, right?
Yes, we do.
All right, let's go.
All right, so our presentation today is about EDI in First and just creating a sense of belonging, which of course is presented by the First Canada Youth Council.
So hi everyone, just kind of wanted to start with a graphic that I like that sort of explains equity, diversity and inclusion and sort of working towards that sense of belonging that you can see highlighted in the center there, what we're going to be taking a deeper dive into as we get throughout this presentation into more of a discussion. So equity deals with distribution of power, opportunity and access for all people in an organization, or in our case, a First team. Diversity dealing with the representation of multiple cultures, ethnicities, and backgrounds, and inclusion being a practice of ensuring that all ideas and the people who are fronting those ideas are met without bias or any preconceived notation. And different bodies, or First teams in our case, who exercise these 3 principles are working to create a sense of belonging. And that's something that we really want to highlight. As obviously a benefit for all students competing in First, making sure that they have a place where they feel accepted and have a sense of belonging. But there's also benefits for teams as well. It's sort of in having more students that feel that they belong in that environment creates benefits for teams in the long run. The more students who feel they belong in this environment, the more students are going to be part of First teams, and that's something that I think all mentors and teams are excited by the possibility of. students who are feeling like they belong are going to commit more time to those first teams and eventually become the leaders that create that sense of belonging for the newer, the grade 9 students who are coming into an FRC team or helping to help FLL kids, feel like they have a place in FIRST Robotics as well.
Tyler, that's a really, really good point. I think back often to something that Dr. Woody Flowers used to say. He said, like with regards to ED&I, especially inclusion, it goes, not only is it, you should do it because it's the right thing to do, because it's just like people should be included and people should be treated equitably, but also it is the best interest of your organization or your team. So like, it's a double win. Like, why wouldn't you do it? It's not only the right and ethical thing to do, but it's actually going to allow your organization to thrive the most. And I think that's something that's really important that sometimes gets lost in this, because sometimes people think, oh, we're doing this because it's the right thing to do, but it's going to hurt us in the long run. And it's the actual opposite of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely. That's a great point.
So of course, there's like a lot of initiatives that I think could be taken on teams just to like promote EDI in general. For example, like hands-on workshops where teams can create like small groups where students and mentors can work together and have like team building activities where everyone can just learn more about each other and create a stronger bond. Because at the end of the day, I personally believe that like your team is like your own little family at school, and like having hands-on workshops will like also allow students to get more comfortable with meeting new people, especially like grade 9s or grade 10s who, is their first year on the team. And like, I think the fun thing about workshops is that they don't even have to be related to robotics. They can be related to other things like art, where students can draw something they want to express. And we can also do like presentations, which I think are super important because they allow everyone to gain more insight on how important equity, diversity, and inclusion can be. And I personally didn't know much about EDI, but once I developed a certificate program for my own team, I gained so much insight on how important it is and how valuable it can be, not only on the team, but like in the real world too. And posters, of course, creating posters and having them placed, around the school or community is like an awesome way to promote EDI because they allow like information to be presented to a broader audience in like a really cool and like fun way. And I love reading posters around my school all the time because I feel like every time I see them, I always leave with like a little bit more insight or information on a topic than I did before.
Inclusivity on a team is extremely important. In addition to team initiatives promoting inclusion of all team members, especially rookies, there are some things that rookies, or just anyone who wants to get more involved on their team, can do to become more involved. The first thing that they can do is show initiative. Showing initiative will show your teammates that you are willing to work hard and contribute to your team. Next, believe in yourself and be confident. I know robotics can seem daunting at first, but after spending some time in the lab, you will realize it is not as scary as you think. It is an extremely rewarding and amazing experience. If you just believe in yourself and work hard, you can do it. Next, ask for help when you need it. Everyone needs a little help sometimes, so don't be embarrassed to ask for it if you need it. Asking a mentor or older teammate for help is a lot better than just never figuring out your answer. Also, do not be afraid to make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes sometimes, and even though we build machines, we are not machines. Collaborate with and be respectful of others. Teamwork is essential to a robotics team, and collaborating effectively with others is also an essential life skill. But while working with others, remember to be respectful of them and their ideas. People work best together when everyone feels comfortable and respected.
Samantha. I think those are some really good tips for rookies, and I think there's also some tips for leaders to implement to give rookies the opportunity to express those things that Samantha talked about. So first of all, I think when you're a leader in any capacity in your team, you want to be a good role model for the team. So if you put in the initiative and you put in the work for the team, others will follow along, and they'll also be motivated to put in that same level of commitment as you. Additionally, you want to promote collaboration within members in the team, right? So if different members are working on a certain project, you want them to be able to talk to each other and bounce ideas off each other. And that kind of creates this kind of family home kind of bond, which makes it a lot more engaging for students to come back and really want to put in those hours. Also, even though in many cases you might have more experience or might know more than many of the rookie members on your team, it's important that you always give them the respect that they deserve, and that you let their ideas be, kind of taken to their logical extremes and kind of evaluate them properly rather than just shutting them down. That'll make them, feel more encouraged to create and bring up new ideas in the future. But if you shut the ideas down immediately, they might not feel like their right voice is being heard. So make sure you always explain to them the decision-making process, and they're always in the know of what's happening. Additionally, you want to inspire all teammates to be leaders too. So that could mean just giving people leadership opportunities or allowing them to help others out. But you don't want to kind of hog the attention here. You do want to allow other team members to grow along with you. And finally, a lot of people describe an FRC team kind of as a family. So that's really important to get to know your teammates on a personal level, because that helps bring everyone, into those late night practices and coming back over and over to work on that robot. And additionally, a little bit more specific tips for technical sub-teams at this point. So, your mechanical, your design, your programming teams, and teams of those nature. You want to break up subtasks into further tasks and sub-teams into sub-teams. And what that'll allow you to do is it'll allow you to modularize your team so that you have smaller groups of people working on something smaller rather than, let's say, 15 people working on a shooter. Because then what happens is often a lot of people will take a step back and they're not going to do work. But if you have like a 3-person group working on a very specific component of the shooter, they might feel a lot more engaged to actually get involved. And then you want to give them the responsibility. So in those smaller groups, they know that the commitment is on them, the responsibility is on them to get that delivered. And when they have that deliverable, they are a lot more likely to actually go through with it. Again, another good way to kind of make these many subgroups and tasks, even if you don't have that many subsystems, is to make different iterations of a mechanism if you have the resources to do that. And that's also kind of coming back to what Karthik was talking about with actually it benefits the team as a whole from a technical standpoint, because now you're actually iterating multiple different designs, and that's going to help you actually get a better robot at the end of the day. So it's kind of a double win there for sure. And the thing is, while eventually we could talk about presentations, and those are great to explore EDI concept and things like that. In terms of technical sub-team, for rookies to get comfortable doing what they, hands-on working, programming, or building, it's really good to just let them go at it, take a swing at it during your off season, so that they're really ready to get working during your build season. Yeah, I think we can have a discussion now on that presentation.
Thanks. That's a great presentation, really informative. And, Armand, one thing you talked about, like tips for leaders. So one tip I have on inclusivity is language matters. And it's, so, we talk about the use of inclusive language to make people feel involved, but there's other things, and I see this a lot with first students. Some people, when they talk about their team, will always be like, yeah, we accomplished this and we won this award. While others will say, I accomplished this and I did. And really, when you're talking about your team, if you want to make others feel included, you need to be talking in terms of we. And mentors too out there. A lot of mentors will say like, my kids, my students. But like, there's a lot of mentors. So it's like our kids, our students. And that, because when you talk in individual terms, others naturally feel a little left out. Is like, oh, okay, I guess I didn't really accomplish this, and sometimes it might even be something that was really individual. You say like, oh yeah, I drove the robot that won the regional. It's like, that's true. It's like, yeah, like I drove the robot that my team built together. And that sort of language, it's just like little things really do matter for inclusivity. And like, these are the types of tips that we have. So I really thought that presentation was good. I don't know, Michelle, if you have any thoughts from what you just saw.
Yeah, I did really like what you said about, getting involved. For me, I found when I first started on my team, I was a little nervous. I'm like, oh, everyone's been in FLL for years or whatever, and I had just kind of just started, so I was like a little frightened. But then, I was asked by mentors and by the student leads on the team, like, oh, do you want to come in help with this? Do you want to come help write the chairman's essay, come drill this in? And that really, sometimes, I was a little shy and, I don't want to go and put myself out there. But when you're invited to do something, then it makes, people much more likely to get involved and do it. And then I found like, oh, I really like doing this. So then I would start, asking to do it instead. So I think that's, really inviting people to come and be a part. Maybe if you see someone sitting in the corner, say, oh, hey, come on over here, help me edit this essay or help me screw this thing in as well. And then, once you start doing that activity, being really supportive and, nice as they're doing it. Because I was trying to, work like I can't even remember the name. It's like what's a drill? Like just a drill, right? Automatic screwdriver. I know.
Drill is
it's
a
been
drill.
too long. It's been too long since I've been in the build room. But I was all on the wrong angles, like just like falling out, and everyone was watching me, but they're like, "It's okay, Michelle, just try it again," and then I got it. So I think that's really important.
That's a really good point, because like on an FRC team, like and an FTC team, there's like these tight timelines, and it's like we got to do everything really, really quickly. And so sometimes you think, oh well, only like the fastest person should do it because they're going to be most efficient for the team. But for a team, sometimes it's more important to let everyone have a shot. And like, I know, I like, especially when I was younger, like not super confident about like my skills with a drill, or like, I was like a math person, not like a doer. And so whenever, like Mr. Redner would be like, okay, we need someone to like do this on the robot, I would always kind of be like, step back a little bit, because I was like, oh, if I step in, I'm taking away a spot from someone else who's faster or whatever. And I was really fortunate that I had mentors and friends who would be like, no, Karthik, yeah, you take this turn right now. It's okay. And so that way I was able to build some confidence. And even as a mentor, I still more had to step into it. Cause like I knew like all these other mentors for sure, and these students are like way faster than me at it or whatever. But sometimes people are like, here, Karthik, like here's an easy piece you can do, and it's like, oh, like that's really nice. Like even as like an adult, I'm still being included, and I really like appreciate those moments. So, on the topic of inclusion, how have any or all of you noticed inclusion in action on your teams, or maybe around your schools, or in other things that you do?
Personally, I think the one way that I personally experienced like inclusion on my team was when I think it was like my grade 10 year, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was really scared because I was like, everybody on this team, especially like, the senior members, they know what they're doing, and I don't really know where I want to fit into the team. I was like, okay, I kind of like engineering, but I also kind of like the presentation aspects of the team. There's a lot of different things I want to do. And then one day I was sitting there and I was just like so overwhelmed because everybody was walking around, everybody was talking. And then a mentor actually reached out to me and they're like, hey, do you want to come help me sort out the parts in the kit? And I was like, I have no clue what these parts mean, but I'm still going to help you out. And I think just like that one mentor just reaching out to me kind of just like, I was like, that's so cool, because now I feel like I know more and I'm making more connections now too. And I think that one experience allowed me now as like a senior mentor on my team to like start including freshmen on like or rookie members too. Cause I'm like, just because of that one experience, I want to make somebody else's experience on the team better and make them feel included too.
That's the power of effective leadership, because when you have good leaders, then you want to emulate them, and so like all of you, especially this group here, like you're on the First Canada Youth Council, you're leaders in this community, and so your actions will pervade. And if you as Vanshika's mentor did, and now she's doing the same thing for the younger students on her team, and that'll carry forward. And it goes both ways too. Like sometimes if you remember times where you weren't included necessarily, which are hard moments, but we've all had them, to kind of think of how you felt in those moments and make sure I don't want anyone else to feel that way. So I'm gonna look out for people, and that's really, really cool. What about what are the others? Like maybe Tyler, your thoughts on how you've seen inclusion on your team or in the school?
Yeah, sure. So I guess as part of that, like I can sort of share a little bit of my story of how I got into FIRST, which was like in grade 9, I had like signed up to be on part of the robotics team, and then I kind of sort of saw what they were doing, and I was like, oh boy, they're way too smart for me. I can't do this. There's no way. And and then the next year when we started FTC at the school is sort of when I got more involved with it. And I remember like I was really grateful for a couple of the senior FRC programmers who sort of showed me the ropes for everything that we were doing there. And that sort of same thing has prevailed. Like now I'm in grade 12 and I feel like I'm helping some of the FTC students, and that sort of cycle where the younger students have the opportunity to compete sort of on a smaller scale with FTC, but then still be able to make that transition to FRC, and ensuring that more students that way get the opportunity to get that the introduction to FIRST before those who fall in love with it, like most of us end up doing, get that experience before they commit themselves to FRC.
And Armand, your experience, I guess you and Samantha both have similar experience, because Armand, you are on an FTC team that's smaller group, and then you're also on a school FRC team, and Samantha, you were on a smaller IQ team, just it was the two of you, and now you're on like a big FRC team. So maybe Samantha first, how have you seen the differences in inclusion when working on a fairly small team to working on a big team?
Well, definitely there's a huge difference. Like for my IQ team, it's just me and someone else. So we did everything on the team. But with on my current team, 7558, I think we have about almost 50 members, maybe 40, 50 members. Yep. And just the way that like everyone does something on the team and like is included, is that our older members, they come and they, at the beginning of the year in fall training, they hold, I don't know, seminars, I guess, for all the younger members to just teach them different parts of robotics, like how to CAD or all the different parts of electrical, and then everyone can just like learn together, and then we just, as we move forward onto the next into the competition season. Well, best IQ team, it was just the two of us, so what we didn't know, and couldn't ask anyone else on our team for help.
And what about you, Armand?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a difference because when inclusion is mandatory, like in an FDC team, like if someone asks, "Oh, I want to do something," yeah, sure. There's a huge laundry list of stuff we need to get done, so feel free. But in an FRC team, like for example, in my FRC team, where we have over 100 kids, you really have to look at creating tasks for people and creating structures where people have the opportunity to do things. Whereas in a smaller team, it kind of creates itself. You don't have to put too much work into it. So there's definitely a difference there.
And inclusivity takes work. And like, Tyler said, like inclusivity makes us better, but it takes work. And especially I've seen this a lot where students have come from like a small home group FLL team where it's like, they get to do everything. And then they get on the FRC team where they want to do everything because they're used to doing everything. And they might be technically competent and capable of doing everything, but you have to let others get involved, and it like an FRC team is like, it's a team. There's no way around it. One person's not going to do it effectively, even though they think they can and they might want to. And it's really about letting others get involved. So we talked a little bit about this, but I want to throw this out there, or maybe Michelle, actually, before I go, do you have a question for the group?
Well, I love hearing about all these stories, and a lot of them were about how you guys, when you just first started on your team. So when you guys first started on their team, were there anything that you took the initiative to do yourself that kind of helped you set up for a leadership role later on, like right now?
Samantha, do you want to go first? Okay.
Oh, sure. Okay. So as mentioned before, just learning all the different parts of robotics. Like I learned when I was in grade 9, I learned how to CAD, and now I am helping my other members of the team learn to do that as well.
Personally, I think my first full season was in grade 10, which absolutely sucked because the pandemic hit and we had no competitions, which made me really, really upset. But throughout my grade 10 year, after watching all the mentors, what they did in grade 11, I started the certificate program for my team because obviously we're online. So all the grade 9s or 10s or 11s who joined the team for the first year, they couldn't have the full experience that I personally did. So I created this certificate program where they could learn about EDI, how competitions would actually be, what the team is all about, leadership opportunities, and everything that they would get in a normal season, but more virtually, because I don't want to miss out on that first year and just learning all this information, because I love the first year on my team where I was oh my gosh, this is so exciting, just seeing robots and all that fun stuff. So I think just taking little initiatives just to improve the experience of rookie members on my team, I think, that was the one big thing that I did.
That's a really big thing. That's really cool that you took that. It's because, like you said, in grade 10 year, you didn't get to see anything. It would have been really easy for you to just kind of check out a little bit, be okay, I'll come back, but you still wanted to create that experience for others. So that's really cool. That's that's what inclusivity is about. You went out of your way to get others involved. So we talked about this at the start, about inclusion and the importance, but does anyone want to take a stab at why inclusion is important? We talked about it, but I think it's important to restate.
In my opinion, I think that inclusion, so we definitely talked about, there's a whole long list of moral reasons. And I think we've first talked a lot about that in the past. But again, I really want to hone in on this idea that it is strategically beneficial for you to be inclusive, because when you're inclusive, you're going to have a diversity of opinions, and you're going to be able to try out a lot more things. And when everyone's working, you're simply just going to be more efficient. So I think it's really important in that respect from an FRC team standpoint. And of course, you have the moral reasons of trying to get everyone involved. And that would build a stronger community around robotics for sure.
I think also when we talk about inclusion, because it ties in with the whole ED&I, equity, diversity, inclusion, and it's really important to focus on folks who may traditionally not be included, whether it be by race or by gender or by ability, or just someone who you can tell has kind of been ignored. There's always people you meet in school. And it's like, oh, they kind of struggle to make friends or whatever. It's really important to work to include those folks because as you fall in love with FIRST, and FIRST can be such an impactful program. And I always get nervous that some people won't get to experience the beauty of all of this because they just didn't feel included at a certain moment. So I think that's really interesting, right, Michelle?
I just want to add, like, super quickly.
Yeah, I know.
I think
super long too. Take your time.
I think inclusivity is like also really important because like the one thing that I learned from like the 3 years that I've been on the team is that like sometimes it's like, some senior members are like, I know how to do something really well, so I'm going to take this role. But I think it's super important for inclusivity because like those senior members can like mentor like new members so that when they graduate, those members can take on those roles, which I think is really, really important because if there's no inclusivity and like there's no mentoring there, it's like there's going to be a really big learning curve for those students when they become seniors because they wouldn't have gotten the same experience that the other mentors or alumni did. So I think it's like a really big thing about inclusivity as well.
Also in FIRST, like obviously like adding a robot takes specific knowledge and programming a robot takes specific knowledge. But when first thing you do, you break down the game and you brainstorm, like the best ideas can come from anywhere. It can come from the mentor who's been doing FIRST since 1994, or it can come from the student who's just seen the game and it's like, oh, has an idea. I remember one year, our team was working on a robot 1114, and it was the brainstorming day, and it was 2010 season. There was these giant bumps on the field, and it's like we understood that if your robot came down off the bumps, there's a good chance it could like tip over and like center of gravity issues or whatever. And then there was a kid, grade 9 or grade 10 at the time. He's like, wouldn't it be cool if our robot was like one of those like Weebles where like if it fell on its back, it could just like get back up? And everyone kind of looked at each other. Like some people were like, well, that sounds kind of dumb. And then we're like, well, hold on to something. He's onto something. And so like that led to the idea. It's like, okay, let's get our center of gravity set to a point and get the geometry of the robot that if it does fall backwards, something's going to push it naturally back up. And that robot could not be tipped over that year. It could get back up beyond 90 degrees and then it would pop back down. And it was just really wild. And that came from an idea of a student who, just because we were taking ideas from anyone, and the student was very inexperienced at that time. Like he eventually grew up to become a driver and all sorts of fancy things on the team and did all sorts of cool things. But at that point, it was just like anyone can have that idea. But if you don't have an inclusive idea environment, those ideas, you'll never hear them. And it always pains me on FRC teams where people have ideas and they're afraid to say them and they don't say them. And then they get to the competition. They're like, oh yeah. People are like, oh, that robot's so good. It's like, oh yeah, I had that idea. And it's like, oh, if you only felt comfortable enough to say it, the team would be in a different place. So that's just another reason why inclusion is important. That's my story. I think here.
An inclusive environment is like the first main step to having good inclusivity on your team for sure.
Michelle, you got another question for our panel here?
Sure. So we have really talked a lot about inclusion, and especially for rookies as well. But do you guys have any ideas about inclusion after coming back? I know some teams are now meeting in person for the first time after a long while. So any the ideas for inclusion in like a not post-COVID, but different kind of time coming out of virtual a little bit.
There's such a large knowledge gap now because when I was in grade 9 on the team, the grade 11s and 12s did all the really complicated stuff, and now both of those grades have graduated, and it's up to us and the grade above us because we're now those grades, and we need to educate the younger members of our team and just do everything. So I think that if this also comes back to some of the things that we talked about before, like new rookies and stuff, like standing up and being confident and things like that. It's just if you know something on your team, like if you know how to CAD really well or something, or know a lot of electrical, and you're just kind of nervous because you've never been in that leadership position before, just stand up and say it, and you'll benefit. a lot of people, and just that's how we'll try to close the knowledge gap.
And I agree with Samantha there, especially with the knowledge gap that came with COVID. And I think it actually makes inclusion a little bit easier because you don't have this huge disparity between knowledge anymore. Kind of everyone's closer to the same playing field, which makes it easier for everyone to learn as a whole, rather than the best just learning more and the lower staying down. So I think this COVID has, that's one of the benefits, I think, is this knowledge gap. Kind of everyone's at the same place. Of course, you still have your mentors and things, but the current your students might have a bit of knowledge gap, so everyone can start at the same point and everyone can feel comfortable to contribute.
Oh, do you have something? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was just gonna say, like, I also think it's like, because of that knowledge gap, I think it's sort of highlighted the importance of like documenting a team knowledge. Like, I know that's something that we worked on last year during COVID was, okay, we know that these students who've been part of FIRST for 4 years now are going to be graduating either this year or next year. How can we ensure like that their knowledge is retained for the next generation of the team? So like creating tutorials and documents and stuff like that sort of encapsulate that knowledge to ensure that sort of where the team knowledge base as it is now is sort of a baseline for the future teams, not something that they're building towards, so that the team overall knowledge can sort of continue to grow despite the fact that they haven't had like hands-on build experience.
One thing I wanted to say too, one thing that I like to do personally, and like I try to like push other like senior members on my team to do, is like if we break down to like smaller groups and I'm walking around, just seeing what groups are talking about or brainstorming, I like to like not pick on somebody, but kind of like if somebody's sitting there in the corner and they look kind of shy and stuff, I'll be like, hey, do you have an idea? Like, what do you think about this? And I think just like that one question can just push them to feel more included, because sometimes they're too shy to talk about it, right? So they need someone to ask them like, hey, what do you think about this? So I think that's like the one thing that I always like myself, I like to try to do that and like, promote other people around me to do that, because, sometimes people are just really shy and they have really great ideas.
It's a real skill that when you're talking to a room, to talk to the whole room as opposed to just kind of focusing on those. And it can really happen, especially in FRC team settings, where it's like, like the people who know the most are sitting up at the front, and like your body language, your eyes are looking at that. And so you're not, but like you said, if there's someone else out there, like, and there's a fine line. You obviously don't want to put people on a spot because someone might not be comfortable speaking to that, but just to kind of suss it out or maybe like touch on it in smaller things. Hey, a great comment in chat. I was the type of person who typically preferred to sit back. So hearing that inclusivity is such a solid focus in these times is absolutely amazing. And I completely agree with that. I don't know, Vanshika, I don't know if there's any other questions that you had that you wanted us to discuss here, or?
I actually do have a question for you, Karthik.
Oh, okay.
As someone who's like been involved like FIRST for like a long time now, like how do you think EDI as an overall thing has evolved in FIRST, in your opinion?
So EDI has evolved a lot in FIRST. I think number one, it's a stated thing before. I think before it's a stated thing now. Before, a lot of teams were doing the things that are a part of creating an equitable, diverse, and inclusive environment. But now that it's a stated goal, I think more teams are aware of it. And, we talk a lot, and Youth Council's been on this show before talking about subconscious biases, and we all have them. I think that our FIRST communities, we've got a lot of good people in there who, there aren't actively biased, but there's a lot of subconscious biases that we have to deal with, or unconscious bias. And so now that EDI is more talked about, I think a lot of teams are being a little bit more introspective and trying to find their gaps and being like, hey, I know we haven't like done anything intentionally, but for the last 10 years, our team's been 80% men, boys, and only 20% girls. Like, so what are we going to do differently? And so I think there's more of a conscious look at that. Specifically towards inclusion, I think in the early years, I think of FRC in Canada especially, like teams were a lot smaller and teams were very cliquey, where it was like one group of kids in the school. And one of the best things about FIRST is when you join a FIRST team, like there's this like really great community where everyone, like, it's just like, it doesn't matter who you are, whatever, you're kind of welcomed in. And I think a lot of kids felt like, wow, I finally belong. This is great. I don't want the other kids at the school who've been mean to me before involved in this. I want this just to be for us. And I think that attitude, it's not a good attitude, because you're being exclusionary. You're being exclusionary of the people who've traditionally been excluded. Like, it's like now that you found your spot, you don't want anyone else to be in there. Like that's not what it's about. Like it's about making sure that others don't feel the way that you felt before. But I think I've seen a lot of FRC teams evolve over time, and some of those attitudes are gone. Like I remember 2004, it's a long time ago. I just, eventually you wanted to go to the back, but that game had a role where the human player needed to just like shoot baskets, basically. It had to be really good at it. And I remember so many FRC teams, like a lot of people suggest like, oh, like why don't teams go recruit someone from the basketball team? They're like, oh no, we can't have a basketball player on our team. What do they know about robots? And that was such like an exclusionary attitude. But the teams who did really benefited from recruiting. And a lot of teams got people who would never have been involved in FIRST before. And then they joined the team. And then it's like, oh, wow, I love engineering. I love this. And that's the sort of thing. But now I look at FRC teams and I see more diversity and inclusion where it's not just like a clique. It's like people from all sorts of all parts of the school. Like I know FRC 4525 in their chairman's submission, they talk about how their team has representatives from like, I think it's like 85% of the other sports teams and clubs at the school. So like different people from different areas, like they have cross country athletes and football players and artists on the team. And like, I see more of that big picture sort of thing in FRC where it's not just like FIRST is just for like, oh, yeah, that's a club for the nerds. It's for the club for the people who already like technology or whatever. Now it's like, no, like FIRST robots is like anyone can do robots. And if you want to come, it's like, it's fun. It's exciting. And like, yeah, there's a math side to it, but there's like a social side to it. Like Rebecca was telling us earlier, there's a management side, there's a business side, there's an artistic side. So there is really a spot for everyone. And I like to say, I don't know. Okay, well, I'm just going to keep doing the old references here. Any of you seen the movie, The Breakfast Club?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. And so the speech at the end, all of us are, and I can't do the speech exactly, but we're part princess, part geek, part jock, part popular kid, and for a FIRST team to truly succeed, you need to have all those elements. And I see more of that these days, and that really makes me happy. Like I know I was really lucky when I did FIRST in high school because I have Mark Bredner as a mentor, and he was really good at like, we had lots of people from different parts of our school on the team and everything. And like, I was nervous to join the robotics team because I was like, oh, my friends are just going to make fun of me for doing this or whatever. And I think there's less attitudes like that now. And I think there's more, I don't know. I think your generation is just more inclusive in general. So I think that's kind of my long way of saying that I think things have gotten better, but I think we can all look for blind spots to see how we can improve. Because if we just pat ourselves on the back, and it's easy to say, look, we love FIRST. FIRST is great. Well, we're never going to improve. And there's obviously things we can do more of to try and get more communities involved and more underserved and underrepresented groups. So
yeah, I totally agree with that. I think like overall, just like the idea of like little cliques and stuff like that, I really like that you touched on that because like I've seen it in like my first year in high school, but then over the years, I see that like kind of fading away, and now people from different backgrounds coming together. And I think like when there's like different people from different backgrounds and experiences, you just have an even more like fun and like creative environment. Personally, I think that.
Yeah. And I think we should talk more about the clique thing because I don't think it gets talked about, but I think every high school student exactly understands what it is. And I think everyone has been there before. There is nothing more uncomfortable or awkward walking into a room where everyone knows what's going on and everyone's in on the joke, and you walk in, it's like, hey, how's it going? I'm here. And no one kind of talks to you, or they just keep talking about their inside jokes and everything, and you don't know what's happening and whatever. And so it goes back to what I said about inclusive language. Like sometimes when you're super into FIRST, you can just start talking about team numbers, and it's like number this, number that. Like for someone who doesn't know, that's like, what is going on? There's whatever. I have a math bee or something. There's just like all these numbers coming out and acronyms and OPR and FTC and what is happening. So but like there's nothing worse than being on the outside of an inside joke, especially if you're a little nervous. Oh wait, is that joke about me? And it might not be, but you might be thinking it is, and that's just such a uncomfortable feeling. So I really think it's important for everyone watching the show when you're on your team to just try and make sure like, oh wait, did this turn cliquey, and are we just like not letting others involved? And it's little things. It's like you're done robots for the day, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, we're going over to so-and-so's house to play video games or something like that. Maybe make sure others are invited and have the opportunity to come, so they don't feel like, oh, okay, I don't really belong. Like now that the team meeting's over, I have to go back to hanging out on my own and whatever. And just like that inclusivity piece, I don't know, it's important. What do others think of all that?
I think like the number one factor, at least for me personally, for like coming up at 2 a.m. and working on the code for a robot is kind of that bond within, being included within that family of people. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it just to look at a bunch of Java. I promise you. So I definitely think it's very important to be included within that group of people, and to feel like you're making a really positive contribution to your family itself. So for sure.
Yeah, it makes a difference. There's nothing better than feeling involved and feeling like you belong, and like Michelle, I think 1305, didn't you all have a song, We All Belong?
Yep, it's called We Belong.
We Belong.
We Belong.
Right, but it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. This has been a great discussion. Really glad we could have this and like hear the stories and hear from the Youth Council. It's always good to hear from the Youth Council on this show and what's going on. Anything else that any of the Youth Council members want to add, what the Youth Council is up to? Anything we should be looking forward to? Maybe posts on social media that are coming down soon?
The Being First magazine is going to be released at in mid-December. So just keep an eye out for that. So just keep an eye out for that.
That's going to be fun, Being First magazine, because the first few editions last year were fabulous. So I'm excited. Samantha, can you give us a sneak preview? Is there anything cool that's coming up in this next edition?
Yeah, so there are many different things that we're doing. We have different first, they were talking about our first community. We're doing Humans of First. I can't actually, when you say sneak peek, I can't actually send you a snippet of the magazine. I can't do that.
No, I mean, if you just is there something you can tell us hey, Karth, you're going to want to see this feature?
Yeah, we're gonna in our community section magazine, we're gonna highlight a bunch of initiatives that teams have done. For example, the Girls Assembly Olympics or the SWAT Posium, and many things like that.
That's awesome. Thank you. That'll be really, really good.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of ways for the community, for all of you guys out there watching, to get involved. So keep an eye out on the First Canada social media for ways to get involved in the magazine.
Absolutely, and the Youth Council will be. Well, you're always going to be co-hosting the show with me, and there's going to be plenty of more segments coming up in the new year, and also y'all going to be building robots. Well, I know some of you have already started building robots with FTC. Tyler and Armand is going. Armand or Tyler, any of your teams competing this weekend? Because I know there's the first remote events are starting in Ontario.
Yes.
Oh, Michelle too.
Yes, we are. It's very exciting.
Is your robot ready, Armand?
It's in the process of being ready.
What about you, Michelle?
I believe mine's December, the second weekend in December.
Okay, so you got a little bit of time. You got a little bit of time there. And Tyler?
Some of them are in, they're in varying states of readiness. I have full confidence they will be good to go by next week, though.
There's nothing better than asking first students or mentors how their robot is a couple days before the first event. It's always like, oh yeah, it's almost there. It's
it'll be good. I'm confident.
There's only one mentor I know who's always like, oh yeah, we're ready. Vantrika, I think you know who I'm talking about. It's just but it's great. It's fabulous when teams are ready. But I also want to say that teams who think they aren't ready are almost always more ready than they are. It's believe in yourself, folks. It'll be good. Hey, Youth Council, you are fabulous. Thank you so much for being on. This was a great discussion, and thanks for coming on. Michelle,
thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Of course. Michelle, what do you think of today's show?
I thought that was absolutely awesome. I loved hearing from my Youth Council friends a little bit more about inclusion. I think we had some really great talks especially about rookies, which sometimes can be overlooked a bit, and we're gonna have there's gonna be a lot of rookies because of the shutdown and stuff. So yeah. I think this was probably quite important. And then
super important.
And hearing all the stories from First and management engineering, so I hadn't heard about that before either. So I learned a lot too.
That could be a program for you. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
You got your Waterloo application ready. So next week, not next week, 2 weeks from now, is the mid-season wrap. That'll be our last show of the fall, First Canada Live. We're going to be wrapping up what's been going on with all the various programs. And then in January, the Tuesday after kickoff, we will be back and we'll be going weekly weekly shows because there's going to be so much going on. There's going to be robots being built. There's going to be FLL provincials. There's going to be FTC provincials. All the stuff is happening and it's going to be good. But say next Tuesday, tune into the First Canada Town Hall with John Hobbins. If you have any questions about the upcoming FR season, make sure you join that and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Michelle, any final words?
Yeah, everyone have a great night. Stay safe and, have fun.
All right. We'll see everyone soon. Talk to you. Bye, folks.
Bye.